In the late 1960s, the San Francisco Bay Area was gripped by fear as a mysterious killer emerged, leaving a trail of gruesome murders and cryptic messages to taunt both law enforcement and the public. The unknown assailant would later become infamous as the Zodiac Killer. It all began on December 20, 1968, when David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen were shot and killed in their car on the outskirts of Vallejo, California. The eerie silence of that night was shattered by gunshots, and the Zodiac's reign of terror had begun. The local newspapers received cryptic letters from someone claiming responsibility for the murders, each signed with a mysterious symbol, a circle with a cross through it. Law enforcement struggled to decipher the killer's motives as the Zodiac struck again, targeting Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau on July 4, 1969, in Vallejo. Mageau survived the attack and provided a description of the hooded assailant. The Zodiac, reveling in the media attention, sent letters to newspapers claiming responsibility for both attacks and providing chilling details only the killer could know. The terror intensified as the Zodiac began to communicate directly with the police, taunting them and challenging them to solve his cryptic puzzles. The city was paralyzed with fear, unsure of where the Zodiac would strike next. The killer's elusive nature and uncanny ability to evade capture turned this serial murderer into a haunting enigma that would cast a long shadow over the Bay Area for years to come. The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror continued in a chilling escalation on September 27, 1969. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were enjoying a sunny day at Lake Berryessa when they were attacked by a man wearing a hooded costume, complete with a cross-like symbol on his chest. The Zodiac, armed with a knife, brutally stabbed both victims. After the assault, he took the time to draw a distinctive symbol, a cross circle, on Hartnell's car door, leaving a message that struck terror into the hearts of the investigators and the public. The letters Vallejo and 12-2068, referencing his first attack, were also inscribed on the car door. Once again, the Zodiac played a macabre game with the authorities, sending letters to local newspapers, this time containing a piece of bloody clothing from the victims as proof of his heinous deeds. In these letters, he reveled in the media attention and claimed that killing people was his favorite hobby. Despite a massive manhunt and an increased police presence, the Zodiac remained elusive. The Bay Area lived in fear, knowing that the killer could strike at any moment. Law enforcement agencies from different jurisdictions collaborated, but the Zodiac's cunning nature and ability to taunt and outsmart investigators kept them one step behind the elusive murderer. The hunt for the Zodiac Killer became one of the most infamous and perplexing cases in American criminal history. The Zodiac's bloodlust showed no signs of waning as October 1969 approached. San Francisco became his next hunting ground in what would be one of his most brazen attacks yet. On the night of October 11, 1969, the Zodiac targeted a taxi driver, Paul Stein, in the upscale neighborhood of Presidio Heights. Stein was shot in the head at point-blank range. In a departure from his usual pattern of attacking couples in secluded areas, this murder in a busy urban neighborhood suggested a terrifying evolution in the Zodiac's modus operandi. After killing Stein, the Zodiac took a piece of the victim's bloodstained shirt, later mailing it to the San Francisco Chronicle as a grotesque trophy and proof of his deed. In a shocking twist, the Zodiac was nearly apprehended that night. A police dispatcher mistakenly described the suspect as a black male, leading officers to overlook a white man fitting the Zodiac's description seen near the crime. This critical error allowed the killer to slip away into the night, further frustrating law enforcement and terrifying the public. This murder marked a significant change in the Zodiac's interactions with the police and media. He began to send more letters, including cryptograms he claimed would reveal his identity if solved. However, the coded messages provided more confusion than clarity, deepening the mystery around the Zodiac's identity. As the investigation progressed, the Zodiac continued to taunt the police and the public, claiming responsibility for more murders, some of which could not be verified. His letters became increasingly erratic, filled with strange symbols and cryptic references. leaving investigators scrambling for answers in a case that seemed to grow colder by the day. The Zodiac's ability to strike at the heart of a major city and then vanish into the shadows left a deep psychological scar on the community, transforming him into a near-mythical figure of terror in the annals of American crime. As the Zodiac killer's infamy grew, so did his penchant for cryptic puzzles and menacing communication with the press and police. This period of his activity was marked by a series of complex ciphers sent to newspapers, which he claimed contained. The Zodiac demanded these ciphers be printed on the front pages of the newspapers, threatening further killings if his demands were not met. The most famous of these was the 408-symbol cipher, which was sent in 3 parts to 3 different newspapers. In a remarkable turn, a schoolteacher and his wife managed to partially decode this cipher. The message was a chilling and disjointed statement of the killer's twisted motives, declaring that he was collecting slaves for the afterlife. However, the cipher did not reveal the killer's identity, as he had claimed. The public was both fascinated and terrified by these cryptograms. The Zodiac's ability to send these messages and his continual evasion of capture added to his almost supernatural aura in the eyes of the terrified public. During this time, the Zodiac continued to claim responsibility for various murders and attacks, some of which were confirmed, while others remained unverified. His letters were often riddled with taunts, errors, and more ciphers, suggesting a mixture of narcissism, intelligence, and possible mental instability. The Zodiac's last confirmed murder was in October 1969, but he continued to communicate with authorities and newspapers for several years. His letters became increasingly erratic and sometimes included odd items, like a piece of a victim's dress or diagrams of bombs he claimed he would use to attack a school bus. The terror inflicted by the Zodiac killer went beyond his physical attacks. He had instilled a deep and pervasive fear in the heart of the San Francisco Bay Area and the nation. Parents feared for their children's safety, and many were afraid to venture out at night. The Zodiac had become a boogeyman, a symbol of random and incomprehensible violence in a tumultuous era in American history. The inability of the police to capture the Zodiac only added to this fear and uncertainty, as the killer remained not just a physical threat, but an enigma that challenged the very effectiveness of law enforcement and struck at the public's faith in their protectors. Despite an extensive investigation, the Zodiac killer managed to elude law enforcement, leaving behind a string of unsolved murders and an enduring mystery that would haunt the collective memory of the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. In the years following the last confirmed Zodiac murder in 1969, the killer's communications became sporadic, and the cryptic letters grew less frequent. Theories and suspects emerged, but the true identity of the Zodiac remained. Numerous individuals were investigated. Some even confessed to being the Zodiac, but none were definitively proven to be the infamous killer. In 1974, the letters seemingly stopped, leaving law enforcement and the public to wonder about the fate of the Zodiac. The lack of communication did not mean closure, and the specter of the unsolved case lingered, a reminder of the terror that had gripped the region for years. Decades later, advancements in forensic technology reignited interest in the case. In 2007, a partial DNA profile was extracted from one of the Zodiac's letters, but it did not match any known suspect. The search for the Zodiac killer continued, with periodic updates from law enforcement and amateur sleuths who remained dedicated to solving the mystery. The legacy of the Zodiac killer extends far beyond the crimes themselves. The case has inspired countless books, documentaries, and films, becoming a cultural phenomenon that continues to captivate the public's imagination. The enduring fascination with the Zodiac speaks to the fear and fascination surrounding unsolved mysteries and the darker aspects of human nature. To this day, the Zodiac killer remains one of the most enigmatic figures in American criminal history. The unresolved case serves as a chilling reminder that, despite the passage of time, some mysteries may never be fully unraveled, and the true identity of the Zodiac killer may forever remain hidden in the shadows of history. As the years turned into decades, The Zodiac case transformed from an active investigation into one of the most infamous cold cases in American history. The Zodiac killer's identity and his motivations remain shrouded in mystery, an enigma that continued to intrigue both law enforcement and the public. Despite the passage of time, the case was never fully closed. New generations of detectives inherited the files, each hoping to be the one to crack the case wide open. The advent of advanced forensic technologies, such as DNA analysis and digital enhancements of old evidence, provided new avenues to pursue leads that were cold for years. In the 2000s and 2010s, law enforcement agencies revisited the Zodiac evidence, applying these modern techniques in the hope of uncovering new clues. Amateur sleuths and internet detectives also took to online forums and social media, sharing theories and dissecting every aspect of the case in meticulous. In 2018, the success in identifying the Golden State Killer through genealogical DNA raised hopes that a similar approach could finally unmask. Law enforcement agencies announced they were attempting to extract DNA from the Zodiac's letters and other evidence left at the crime scenes to compare against genetic databases. Despite these efforts, as of my last update in April 2023, the Zodiac's identity remains a mystery. The case is a testament to the complexity and difficulty of criminal investigations, especially in an era before the technological advancements we see today. The Zodiac Killer's story has become a part of American lore, a chilling reminder of the capacity for human evil and the limits of law enforcement. It continues to be a subject of fascination, a puzzle that has yet to be solved, keeping the story alive in the public consciousness. The Zodiac case stands as a dark, unresolved chapter in American criminal history, a mystery that may never be conclusively solved, leaving the questions of who the Zodiac was and why he killed to linger in the annals of unsolved mysteries. It all began when I returned to my childhood home, a quaint old house nestled in the heart of rural America. Having lived in the city for years, the slow, rhythmic life of the countryside was both a comfort and a novelty, but this sense of peace was short-lived. From the first night, the house felt different. The walls and floors creaked more than I remembered, and there was a coldness in the air that no amount of heating could dispel. I shrugged it off as the usual quirks of an old house. However, as the days passed, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. I started noticing things out of place. A book here, a utensil there. Initially, I blamed it on my forgetfulness, but the frequency and oddity of these occurrences soon ruled out that possibility. One night, I awoke to find all the kitchen cabinets wide open, a sight that chilled me to the bone. It wasn't just the physical disturbances. At night, I heard whispers, the faint sound of someone speaking just below the threshold of audibility. I would walk through the house trying to locate the source, but it always seemed to move, staying just out of reach. I tried to rationalize these experiences, blaming them on the stress of my relocation and the isolation of the countryside. But deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. The feeling of being watched became constant, and the house that once felt like a sanctuary now seemed like a prison. Despite my unease, I decided to delve into the history of the house, hoping to find a logical explanation. I visited the local library, combed through old records, and talked to a few elderly locals. What I uncovered was a history of unexplained events and a string of previous owners who left abruptly, their reasons unrecorded or chalked up to personal issues. The turning point came one evening when I found an old photograph hidden beneath the floorboards in the attic. It was a picture of a family, presumably a previous owner, with all members looking somber. Was on the back, written in faded ink, was a date and a single word: forgive. That night, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. It was as if the discovery of the photograph had stirred something, a presence that had lain dormant until now. I lay in bed, listening to the voices, a growing sense of dread filling. I realized then that whatever haunted this house wasn't just a remnant of the past. It was something far more personal and far more terrifying. The photograph became a focal point of my investigation, a haunting relic that held the key to the unsettling events unfolding in the house. I researched the family depicted, reaching out to distant relatives and neighbors who remembered them. Slowly, the pieces of a tragic tale began to emerge. The family in the photograph had lived in the house during the early 20th century. They were well regarded in the community until an inexplicable tragedy struck. One by one, the family members succumbed to an illness that defied diagnosis. Their deaths were swift and mysterious, leaving the community in shock. As I delved deeper, I discovered rumors of a curse associated with the family. Whispers of dark rituals and a pact gone wrong circulated among the locals, a tale that had been hushed up over the years. The word "forgive" on the back of the photograph took on a chilling significance, hinting at unresolved guilt and a plea for absolution. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I decided to confront the unsettling presence in the house. I lit candles and positioned the photograph in the center of the room, a makeshift altar to the past. The whispers, once disjointed and unintelligible, coalesced into mournful voices, recounting a tale of suffering and betrayal. The air thickened as a spectral figure materialized before me, a woman, gaunt and ethereal. She was the matriarch of the ill-fated family, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and accusation. The room seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy as she spoke, revealing the tragic events that had befallen her family and the unresolved anguish that tethered her to the house. She spoke of a curse invoked in a moment of desperation, an attempt to save her family from an impending tragedy. But the ritual had backfired, leading to their untimely demise. The word "forgive" echoed again, a plea for release from the shackles of guilt that bound her spirit to the earthly realm. As her story unfolded, I felt a surge of empathy and sorrow. The tragedy that had befallen the family was not a result of malevolence, but a desperate attempt to defy an inevitable fate. The paranormal occurrences in the house were manifestations of unresolved pain and the yearning for forgiveness. Determined to help the tormented spirit find peace, I listened to her story with an open heart. The room, once filled with a palpable tension, began to radiate a sense of catharsis. The whispers softened, and the spectral figure gradually faded, leaving behind a lingering stillness. In the aftermath, the house felt different, as if a weight had been lifted. The creaks and groans became echoes of the past, rather than harbingers of fear. The photograph, now devoid of spectral influence, became a memento rather than a source of dread. But as I settled back into the restored tranquility of the house, a lingering question haunted my thoughts. Had I truly helped the tormented spirit find peace, or had I merely uncovered one layer of a deeper, more complex tapestry of supernatural mystery? In the days that followed the spectral encounter, a fragile peace settled over the house. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, replaced by a newfound serenity, yet an undercurrent of curiosity and lingering unease propelled me to delve further into the mysteries that shrouded the history of the ill-fated family. Guided by a relentless need for understanding, I sought out the few remaining relatives and townsfolk who held fragments of the family's tale. Through careful conversations and persistent inquiries, a more intricate narrative began to unfold. The family had indeed dabbled in practices that blurred the line between the natural and the supernatural. The matriarch, burdened by a premonition of impending tragedy, sought solace in forbidden rituals. Desperation had led her to invoke forces beyond her comprehension, unwittingly setting off a chain reaction of events that would seal the family's tragic fate. The townsfolk, reluctant to speak openly about the supernatural elements woven into the family's story, hinted at a history tainted by fear and superstition. Whispers of a malevolent force lingering in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to resurface, echoed through the tight-lipped community. Haunted by this revelation, I revisited the photograph, studying the faces of the family members. Each gaze seemed to implore me to unearth the truth buried beneath layers of secrecy and unresolved pain. The more I learned, the more it became evident that the tragic events were not isolated to the ill-fated family. They were threads woven into the very fabric of the town's history. One evening, as I combed through old newspapers and faded archives, I stumbled upon accounts of inexplicable phenomena that had plagued the town for generations, stories of unexplained deaths, strange sightings, and a recurring pattern of tragedies hinted at a dark underbelly, carefully concealed from outsiders. It became clear that the house, a silent witness to generations of secrets, held the key to unraveling the town's supernatural tapestry. Armed with this knowledge, I embarked on a journey into the house's hidden recesses, determined to uncover the lingering mysteries that had cast a perpetual shadow over the town. As I explored forgotten corners and dusty attics, I stumbled upon a concealed chamber beneath the floorboards, a chamber adorned with symbols and artifacts indicative of occult practices. The air in the chamber crackled with an otherworldly energy, and I sensed that I stood at the epicenter of a convergence of mystical forces. In the dim light, I discovered a series of journals belonging to the matriarch. The pages chronicled her descent into the arcane, detailing her attempts to navigate a realm beyond human understanding. The last entry, written with an unsteady hand, hinted at a malevolent force that had been inadvertently unleashed, its hunger for suffering insatiable. As I read those chilling words, the temperature in the chamber plummeted, and a spectral presence materialized before me. Not the tormented matriarch, but a malevolent force shaped by centuries of unresolved anguish. The room pulsated with an ominous energy, and I realized that the house held not just the ghosts of the past, but a sentient malevolence that hungered for more than forgiveness. It hungered for the very essence of life. The malevolent force, freed from the shadows of centuries, loomed before me with a palpable malevolence. It was a culmination of all the pain, suffering, and despair that had accumulated within the town, given form by the rituals and incantations conducted in the hidden chamber. As the temperature plummeted, the malevolent force projected images of past tragedies onto the walls. Apparitions of tormented souls, echoes of the town's haunted history, danced in a macabre display. The force spoke, its voice a guttural symphony of anguish, revealing the extent of its insatiable hunger for the misery of the living. I realized that the matriarch's attempts to ward off an impending tragedy had inadvertently created a conduit for an ancient, malevolent entity. The force, now awakened, sought to feed on the town's perpetual cycle of suffering, using the shadows of the past to manipulate the present. Driven by a newfound sense of responsibility, I confronted the force, demanding answers. It reveled in the torment it had orchestrated, boasting about its ability to exploit the vulnerabilities of human nature. The force, born from the depths of human despair, reveled in the chaos it sowed. As its dark presence intensified, the house seemed to resist, groaning under the weight of the malevolent force. Shadows coalesced into grotesque forms, and a chorus of disembodied voices echoed through the chambers. The town itself seemed to pulse with a dissonant energy, as if nature itself recoiled from the unnatural entity that had taken residence. Realizing the gravity of the situation, I sought a way to contain or banish the malevolent force. The journals hinted at a ritual, a binding ceremony that could tether the entity to the chamber. Armed with newfound knowledge, I traced the steps outlined in the journals, each incantation a desperate plea for containment. The confrontation that followed blurred the lines between the physical and the supernatural. The malevolent force resisted the binding ritual with an intensity that shook the very foundations of the house. I felt the weight of generations upon me, the suffering of the town manifesting in a struggle for control over the entity. In a moment of desperation, I invoked the words of the ritual with unwavering determination. The room quivered as a blinding light enveloped the malevolent. Its howls of defiance turned into agonized shrieks as the ritual took hold, binding the entity to the chamber, a prison of its own malevolence. With the force contained, the house seemed to exhale, as if relieved of an ancient burden. The shadows retreated, the temperature normalized, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The town, too, seemed to sigh in relief, its haunted history quieted by the resolution of an age-old conflict. Yet, as I surveyed the chamber, the journals, and the relics of the occult, I couldn't shake the uneasy realization that the malevolent force was merely one manifestation of a deeper, more intricate supernatural tapestry that bound the town in a delicate balance between the living and the spectral. The struggle against the malevolence had only scratched the surface of a history steeped in secrets and unresolved mysteries. In the aftermath of containing the malevolent force, the house returned to a state of uneasy calm. The air, once thick with the weight of unspoken horrors, now carried a sense of cautious relief. However, the town's response to my intervention, while some expressed gratitude, others were wary, suspecting that the disturbance of the ancient entity might have unforeseen consequences. Amidst this atmosphere of uncertainty, I continued to explore the deeper mysteries tied to the town's history. The journals, though helpful in understanding the matriarch's actions, also hinted at other forces at play, entities and rituals that extended far beyond the confines of the house. Our conversations with the town's oldest residents unearthed tales of forgotten lore and warnings of places within the town where the veil between worlds was perilously thin. These tales, once dismissed as superstitions, now resonated with a chilling plausibility. One particular story caught my attention. The legend of a hidden grove, a place shrouded in secrecy, where the boundaries between the living and the dead were said to be blurred. Intrigued and driven by a relentless desire for answers, I set out to find this mysterious grove. The search led me through the town's outskirts, into dense woods, where the passage of time seemed to slow. After hours of wandering, I stumbled upon a clearing unnaturally still and shrouded in an ethereal mist. The grove, as if untouched by time, radiated a serene yet foreboding energy. In the heart of the grove stood an ancient altar, its surface carved with symbols that echoed those in the hidden chamber of the house. I realized that the grove was not just a place of natural beauty, but a site of immense supernatural significance, a nexus point for the town's spectral energies. As dusk fell, the grove took on a surreal quality. Shadows danced at the periphery of my vision, and the air was filled with the whispers of unseen presence. It was here, in this liminal space, that I encountered the spirits of the town's forgotten past, echoes of lives intertwined with the supernatural fabric of the area. These spirits, unlike the malevolent entity in the house, bore no malice. Instead, they conveyed stories of love, loss, and the delicate balance between the natural and the supernatural that had defined the town's history. Their tales painted a picture of a community perpetually caught in a struggle to coexist with forces beyond their understanding. As the night deepened, the spirits imparted a crucial piece of wisdom. The malevolent force I had contained was but a symptom of a much larger, intricate web of supernatural occurrences that had plagued the town for generations. My actions, though well-intentioned, were mere ripples in a vast ocean of spectral events. With this revelation, I returned to the house, my mind heavy with new knowledge and a growing sense of responsibility. The house, once a source of fear and uncertainty, now stood as a beacon of understanding, a place where the veil between worlds was thin and the whispers of the past held secrets waiting to be uncovered. As I gazed upon the photograph that had started it all, I realized my journey was far from over. The house, the town, and its spectral inhabitants were part of a larger narrative, one that I was now inextricably woven in. The quest for understanding had evolved into a mission to maintain the delicate balance between the living and the supernatural, balance upon which the fate of the town precariously hung. Months passed since the revelations in the grove, and the town remained in a delicate equilibrium between the living and the spectral. I had become a guardian of sorts, working to understand the intricacies of the supernatural forces that permeated the area. The house, once a source of dread, had transformed into a haven for those seeking answers. The spirits of the town's past found solace in the rituals and offerings conducted in the grove. The malevolent force, bound by the hidden chamber's containment, no longer cast its dark shadow over the town. The community, though still cautious, had come to accept the presence of the supernatural as an integral part of their history. However, my investigations hinted at the existence of even older forces, ones that predated the town's known history. Legends spoke of ancient rites conducted in the surrounding hills and whispers of forgotten entities that slumbered beneath. The town's spectral tapestry, it seemed, was woven with threads that stretched far beyond the visible seams. As I delved deeper into these mysteries, I realized that my role as a guardian extended beyond the immediate concerns of the town. The supernatural forces, bound by ancient pacts and rituals, were interconnected with a broader cosmic fabric that transcended time and space. The grove, the house, and the hidden chamber were focal points in this ethereal dance, each holding fragments of a truth that eluded easy understanding. My quest for answers had become a journey through the ages, a search for the origins of the supernatural forces that shaped the town's destiny. In the quiet moments between spectral encounters and ritualistic ceremonies, I found myself reflecting on the nature of my own existence. The line between guardian and interloper blurred, and the weight of the town's history pressed up. The tapestry of the supernatural, it seemed, had chosen me as its weaver, guiding my actions and decisions in ways I could only glimpse. The town's future remained uncertain, its fate entwined with the unseen forces that governed the supernatural balance. I continued my work, armed with the knowledge that understanding the town's spectral tapestry required not just unraveling its past, but navigating the ever-shifting currents of its present. As I stood in the grove, surrounded by the echoes of the town's forgotten voices, I accepted the unending nature of my journey. The tapestry, woven with threads of love, loss, and the unknown, unfolded before me, a testament to the resilience of a community caught in the eternal dance between the living and the spectral.